Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Falcon Dish. I am your host, Jason Thomas Scott. Today is Wednesday, May 30th, 2018, and I know that this is literally just a day after we just uploaded the previous edition of the pod, but we had a welcome and fun and interesting thing occur today. Social media is a wonderful gift that technology has granted the world, and one of the things that you're able to do is, you post how you feel about things, and then other people post about how they feel about things, and conversations can be had. Sometimes these conversations, especially if it's with regard to religion or politics, sometimes they can get a little out of hand, and people could be a little cruel online. But one of the fun and interesting things that has occurred, at least in my recent life history, is that in being part of the entertainment industry to the small extent to which I am, I've been able to befriend and know quite a number of professionals here in the Los Angeles area and beyond. And sometimes I'll have something to say about a certain, television program or certain motion picture, and as I am, wont to do, as evidenced by this podcast, I sometimes mouth off about how I feel about Star Wars. And so this morning I did something, pretty much in character and put on my personal Facebook page, the Disney execs are all confused about why it is that Solo isn't performing at the box office. And I said the reason that I felt that this was the case was because of the fan reaction to the previous picture, The Last Jedi. To which one of my Facebook friends, Kevin Rubio, the one and only, the writer and director, everybody knows him for Troops, came out, I want to say in 1997, so that dates us here, but Troops is great. If you haven't seen that, kids, you should go watch that. That basically started off all of the fan videos, all the parody videos of Star Wars and just about everything else as far as people creating their own content online. The effects work is phenomenal. The humor of the piece is fantastic, and it still holds up all these years later. I guess it's been nearly 20 years, if not that. So check that out. Check out Troops. But Kevin went on to not only, produce and direct and write that, but a number of other projects as well. He's the creator of Tag and Bink, a couple of our favorite, now canon, Star Wars characters that will appear in an upcoming deleted scene, unfortunately, from Solo, A Star Wars Story. As well as, in the comics industry, in television. He helped out on the Clone Wars cartoon. Guy's been everywhere. And apparently this morning he was taking a look at Facebook, and he posted on my post and basically commented something to the effect of, well, no, there are a lot of factors. It's not just, it's not just the fans being upset over the previous film. And so, things being what they are, I responded, hey, I'd love to have you on the podcast to discuss it. And within an hour or two, it was literally happening. So that's what happened. We have the honor of having a guest on the pod today. The one and only, like I said, Kevin Rubio, who was kind enough to sit down and chat with me over the phone with regard to what's been going on with Solo, A Star Wars Story, and more specifically, this box office situation. What was going on there? Why? Star Wars, first off, is a family entertainment property. It's owned by Disney, and yet I read somewhere that only 18% of the makeup of these audiences were families. So moms and dads don't seem to be bringing their kids. Confusingly, theaters are apparently relatively empty. People are reporting, maybe only 20 or 30 peeps are sitting down in these theaters that have, a couple hundred seats. So where is everybody? Because ordinarily on a, Thursday night, even with the previews, theater is packed. It's a Star Wars film. We're all cheering. You see the opening logos, you hear the music, you go nuts. And unfortunately, that's just not happening with this picture. It's still, it's nothing to sneeze at here. Box office being what it is, $103 million opening weekend is, most movies would be completely satisfied with such a box office total. But because we're looking through the lens of this being a Star Wars movie and how we have seen Star Wars pictures perform, especially in the Disney era, now everybody is, losing it and wondering what the heck is going on. So there's a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking, even though it's no longer Monday, and Monday was a holiday. And so we have the graciousness of Kevin Rubio here speaking to me via telephone today about Solo's box office, what it actually means from his perspective as a member of the industry and even as a member of, Lucasfilm as an employee at certain points in his life, as well as we go into The Last Jedi and whether or not that has an impact, as well as some of, his feelings as well as my feelings with regard to The Last Jedi. And I think that a lot of the arguments that he makes over the phone today I thought were valid and great points, and it was an honor to have him on, and I was excited for the opportunity. So thank you again to Kevin for joining us. And without further ado, here is the two of us speaking today for the podcast over the telephone. And please excuse the fact that, unfortunately, the audio quality isn't as fantastic as you would hope, but that is just the way things go. So here we are talking Solo.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest with us today on Falcon Dish podcast. I have the very talented filmmaker Kevin Rubio with us today, known for Troops, Clone Wars, Abyss, Tag and Bink.
Wow.
Yeah. Kevin, how are you?
I'm all right. Tired, but good.
I really appreciate you chatting with me today. I kind of want to share with the audience the fact that the reason that we're talking, I posted something to Facebook, on my personal Facebook, about my thoughts on Solo's box office returns and how I felt perhaps it was the fan base and their reaction to The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And you posted back, what's going on, man? What do you think what happened?
As I posted on your feed, I think it's a combination of a lot of things, and I don't think any one person has it right, and I don't think any one person has it completely wrong, except maybe those that say that it's all Kathy Kennedy's fault. I think mainly I don't want to mischaracterize and say fatigue, Star Wars fatigue, because I think that's definitely the wrong word to use. But I think a lot of it has to do with its placement in coming so quickly behind The Last Jedi, or which was only released less than 5 months ago, or 5 months ago.
Yeah,
and traditionally we've had at the minimum a year between films, and so your part. To your part, saying that was it I think you used the word debacle, The Last Jedi debacle. I don't think it's so much debacle as that it's just too close to Jedi, and the fact that I think the video itself came out. What was it? Was it February? When was the release of Jedi on home video?
Oh gosh, yeah, I think it was April.
April. Yeah. I mean, a month ago.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing. If I'm going to make assumptions, I am assuming that perhaps one of the topics that came up during whatever meetings may or may not have been held between Disney and Lucasfilm is release dates, and possibly since Walt Disney initially it was not looked on with favor that they had chosen the Christmas holidays as the time to drop the films. I remember that was met with a lot of resentment initially with The Force Awakens. every Star Wars traditionalist that knows better than the people running Star Wars, that you always release a Star Wars film in May, all of a sudden grew to anticipate and look forward to a Star Wars film dropping at Christmas.
Yeah, my birthday is in May. I just got a little older, and I always looked forward to, Star Wars in May when the prequels were out. But to be honest with you, I've enjoyed my Christmas presents, once a year, the last few years. And when we had these trilogies coming out back in the day, it was 3 years between. With the sequel trilogy, it's 2 years between. So it's already a compressed timeline.
Yeah, and I think that, traditionally Memorial Day is the kickoff of the summer movies, but this year it's kind of, I'm going to use the term outlier perhaps frequently during this conversation, but this year particularly, the summer movies started in February.
Yeah.
We had Black Panther, which was just an unexpected hit. I should say, everybody expected it would probably be, moderately to successful, but surely not the phenomena that it came to be.
The cultural
for
touchstone.
The most part, cultural touchstone, and deservedly so. So we had that, then followed by Avengers, followed by Deadpool. We've been having summer films since February. And
arguably,
but to my point being that every time you go to the movies, at least here in Los Angeles, you're going to spend on average, if you're taking somebody with you, it's just anywhere between $30 to $50
for
the tickets.
I always go somewhere, I want the best screening possible. Sure. I'll do like the AMC Prime thing with the leather seats that you can hit buttons and, all of that.
So you're talking $22.50 a ticket. If you're buying online ahead of time, you're going to pay the $1.50, whatever, for the privilege of buying online. And then, of course, your popcorn, you're looking for two people. You're gonna drop about $80.
Sure.
If you're doing popcorn and soda and candy and the tickets.
But I understand what you're saying about this compressed timeline, the 5 months between release of Last Jedi and Solo. But you have that same situation occurring annually right now with regard to summer's film season starting pretty early. They start releasing movies in like March that are pretty big. And then you also have that same 4-month window, possibly less, with regard to the Marvel films. You mentioned, Black Panther, your Avengers Infinity War, your Deadpool, they were all coming out, but yet they all were making money. Solo, I just read this morning, I was kind of flabbergasted. It dropped an additional 41% just from Monday into Tuesday. Like, people aren't going. And ordinarily with a Star Wars film, people see them more than once. I myself, I'll confess, I saw, prequel films like 3 times in the theaters.
Well, but when you're talking about a drop from a Monday into Tuesday of 41%, you got to look at that as a box office. Say, Monday was a holiday. And Tuesday, the majority of the people go back to work. You're going to lose in any big tentpole picture that comes out on over 3,000 screens. Your next week, you're going to, on average, get a drop off of 40%. You're up to 50% of a drop off. That's just you look at the numbers for any big film, and that's what's going to happen.
Let me ask you this. You had mentioned in your response to me online, you said, no, there's many different factors in response to what I was thinking, which was there's some people out there, myself included, unfortunately, that were they felt burned by The Last Jedi, and so it was like, you know what, I'm going to sit this one out. Do you think that has any truth to it? Do you feel that there are fans that
like I said, I'm sure that is there is an outlier group of people, you know, who were not happy with the way the story of The Last Jedi, and so they want to send their message and say that you know, I'm not gonna see Solo. I'm gonna sit this one out because, quite frankly, they're just not doing my Star Wars. So yeah, that is a factor, but that's not the greatest contributor. By the way, Deadpool fell 57% from its first week to its second week, just as an example. So, you know, when people, but here's what I'm trying to get. When people get across and they grab onto numbers and they try to push a narrative, oh, it's a flop because look at the drop. It went 40%. That happens for every big film. That's not a big thing. And then the thing I think that
week to week it's like 70% usually.
Yeah, the thing that irks me the most is people that grab onto these little pieces of knowledge to further and to push a narrative without realizing that this is the story for every film. And you know, like there are people that are using words like, "Oh, this is a debacle. This is a disaster."
Well,
they did $103 million.
I'll take $100 million. It doesn't sound like
they did $103 million in a 4-day weekend, which is the biggest Memorial Day weekend of the past 4 years. Now, if you compare it with Star Wars numbers, yes, it underperforms. Yes, it's disappointing. And by no means am I putting the blinders on and saying that everything is going to be okay with this film. There should be some genuine trepidation, but for people that are, you know, crying that the sky is falling, it's a little too early yet. The problem is with this one, and again, special circumstances with this particular film, is that they basically shot it twice.
Yeah.
And to people in the industry whom these numbers matter to, you know, because these are the numbers and the profits that they make or don't make basically determine whether or not another project like this will go through. That's genuine concern. To the public at large that have no dog in this fight, this is all just a game for them to play against and either further their narrative or discount their narrative.
Here's why I said what I said. I am one of those fans that, you know, camped out in front of the theater for 24 hours for The Phantom Menace. I'm one of those fans that have traveled across the country to a Star Wars celebration and slept on a concrete floor with like a borrowed hotel pillow in order to see, you know, panels. These are the kinds of people that level of passion, where are they? And if you look at The Last Jedi and what I felt that film proposed, which was, you know, for me, I mean, Kev, I'm an older guy. I've been around like you. You know, I've seen this whole thing over the course of the last 40 years. For me, when you have Yoda, who is like the embodiment of Star Wars, burning down Star Wars with Luke Skywalker, when you have characters in the film telling you take off that stupid mask, like the entire story felt like kind of a slap in the face to fandom. And I think that
Well, and let me, here's the thing, and so let's go back to address that and to Jedi. But before we do that, let me close the thought here with the concerns for the low box office with Solo. This film, and these are my guesstimate numbers. I don't have actual numbers. Okay, these are just I'm throwing out assumptions here. It is possible that Solo could have cost the production company, Disney, Lucasfilm, as much as $270.
Yeah.
Let me see. Am I getting that right? Yeah, to produce. Okay. Plus, and again, throwing out just a number, I'm just going to say average $150 million advertising, publicity, and distribution, and that's a low figure. So you figure that total, it's 370, 420. So anyway, $420 to $450 million total. Committed. It's going to take that plus half as a general rule to break even.
Sure.
Because most people think, oh, well, if I pay my $20, my $10, whatever, to go see Solo, all that money goes to the studio. It doesn't.
No, 60%, I think, is what they're getting,
there's a
right?
percentage. Yeah, and then the percentage, it's a step process. For the longer it stays in the theater, the less money goes to the studio and the more money that goes to the actual theater itself. So, which is why you have broad openings, so that, if it's in 3,000 theaters and a studio's getting 90% back on that first week, they're recouping as much money as possible in the shortest amount of time possible. So that is where Solo could be in trouble and not be allowed, and not break even. Possibly. The next week's box office drop off and the following week's. This week's box office, the weekend box office drop off, and the following weekend box office drop off will be the real tale, because they have pretty much no competition until the Incredibles.
The Incredibles, ironically, yet another
Disney film. Well, yeah, of course that's why they had pretty much 3 weeks free and clear, is because.
Well, and here's what's sad about it, my friend, is I enjoyed Solo. I came out with a smile on my face. It's fine. It's great. And what's sad about that is that people don't know. They're not seeing it. Star Wars fans.
Well, and again, to point out, like, most people are going to be citing Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb. People always let those two aggregates have become the ones that everybody goes to, but those cannot be trusted from a fan's point of view, because I can hop on right now to IMDb and I can give Solo a 1.
Sure. If
I haven't seen it or not, regardless, as with Rotten Tomatoes, the only one that you can really rely on is CinemaScore, which is an aggregate that polls people coming directly out of the cinema.
Yeah.
And CinemaScore gives Solo an A-.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed the film.
Yeah. And that has been the general consensus for people that have actually seen the film, which is why...
Yeah, surprisingly so. Yeah. Because of all of the bad press, because of how people were, freaking out over, Last Jedi or whatever they were freaking out over, hearing rumors of poor Alden and what he was dealing with acting coaches or something, it's like, what? Yeah. And so you see the movie, and no, that was Han, that was Lando, his interactions with Chewie. I mean, you're a fan. I love all the stuff that you post on Facebook or social media. You change your cover photos or your banners, or you put up, memes. I love it, because you obviously share the affection for the world. I got to ask you then, I mean, as that level of fan, I mean, what I'm talking about with regard to The Last Jedi, what was really weird, Kevin, and make fun of me all you want, I'm sure people will, I mourned the loss of Luke Skywalker. I don't know why. It's not a real person.
No,
but for days, I was literally mourning the loss of someone as if someone I knew actually died.
Here's the thing. I'm not saying that any fan's feelings aren't valid. Okay, if for example, if you mourn, the loss of the character that you grew to know and love, that's a valid feeling by you. I'm not saying that you're wrong in that, or that
sure.
if somebody walked away not liking The Last Jedi, that's their feelings. That's completely valid for them to have it. However, when it comes to story, and I'm speaking as a professional writer of television and film of 20 years, Ryan was handed a box or a deck of cards, if you will, and he had to play the cards that he was dealt. And when you're doing a story, you must service not the fans first, but the story first. And the story that he was dealt was Luke has cut himself off and run away. Now, is Luke a coward? No. So why is he there? And Ryan had to come up with an answer. This is not, he didn't start at the beginning. He's in the middle. This is,
sure,
he came with a story where Luke is gone. That's the Force Awakens that everybody, jumped on and loved to death. So where's Luke? Where's Luke? Where's Luke? And you see him in the last minute.
Sure. And there was a lot of promise.
And they don't answer anything. All they say is that he was cut off. So Ryan, those are the cards that Ryan is dealt. Okay, and so when you say, well, that's not your Luke, well, you have to go back to really what is the Force. And a lot of writers that have tackled this go towards the same assumptions that George was always fighting against. And when Tartakovsky did his version of Clone Wars, and you have Mace Windu taking down an armada of droids.
I remember that. I liked that cartoon.
Now, okay. Now, sure, that's exciting. The fans love it, but at least according to George, that's wrong. A Jedi can't do that. And in the comic books, there was, we're talking EU, expanded universe, or what it's become, Legend. You had Jedis with these, different powers. If you were from Mon Calamari, you could do this, and if you were from, Mimbom, you could do this, and George during the story conferences of Clone Wars, they said the Jedis are not the super friends.
Right.
The Force is not a superpower. The Force is a living energy, and
but yet he still had Yoda jump around like Sonic the Hedgehog, and
it is the same for everybody. And look, granted, sure, does he make stuff up as he goes? Yeah, that's what writers do. You leave a little breadcrumb because, quite frankly, I don't know what's going to happen at this point. Obi-Wan Kenobi wasn't supposed to die in the original script. But they realized he doesn't serve any purpose after Act 2, and you need a dramatic turn for your hero, so we're going to kill him off. And now so in the next film, hey, he can come back as a corporeal being.
But I get that. I don't feel necessarily that Rian Johnson was painted into too hard of a corner, because he stacked the deck in his own favor and just sort of went his own direction. A lot of the unanswered questions from The Force Awakens, that was one of the matters of contention with fans, was that it felt that they weren't answered, which was kind of aggravating.
Well, what are you going to do? Okay, so you give us what? You give a speech. Snoke has 5 lines where he says, "Hey, I'm Sidious."
Well,
okay.
It's one of my favorite. Well, let me explain a little bit about myself, I guess. One of my favorite scenes in all of Star Wars are the back-to-back sequences in A New Hope, in which Obi-Wan sits down with Luke in his hut and tells him about the Force, tells him about his dad, gives him a lightsaber, invites him to Alderaan, and Luke is like, I don't know. Meanwhile, we cut to the Death Star, and everybody comes in for a board meeting. Tarkin's there, Vader's there, every admiral is there, and within just 2 or 3 lines, they express everything that's going on in the galaxy and who everybody is and what they want. They are back-to-back sequences that express every amount of exposition you could possibly need or want that pretty much the rest of Star Wars is predicated upon, at least with regard to the Rebellion and the Empire era. That's all you needed. It was 3 minutes. So no, I didn't expect Snoke to stop down and have like a 20-minute convo with Rey about, who her parents are and where he came from or anything like that.
But what does it do?
But there are no answers at all.
There's no, you didn't get any answers for Boba Fett until, and you never would have gotten an answer for what Boba Fett was if it wasn't for the prequels, which was 12 years afterwards.
That's an answer I don't think I need. I think at least like an explanation as to, what the First Order is and where it came from is helpful. Why the Republic is...
But where the First Order is and where it came from, then that was not Ryan's responsibility. As the first film of the new trilogy, that was Abrams and Kasdan's responsibility. To use your point of Ben Kenobi sitting down and talking to Luke and telling the backstory of Darth Vader, and then the board meeting and telling the audience about the Empire and the structure and what's going on, that was Star Wars. That wasn't Empire Strikes Back.
I suppose so. It just feels odd because as a fan, the sequel trilogy to me feels like we're 2/3 of the way in and we're almost pretty much done. The Last Jedi actually felt more like a conclusion than even the middle chapter.
My problems with The Last Jedi have nothing to do with things that Ryan did or did not introduce as far as the mythology or backstory. My problems, I have some tonal problems. I understand why some of the humor is there. I thought some of the humor tonally dropped wrong.
It was very Marvel. It was very. It doesn't fit Star Wars to me.
I just think that I just think the shift occasionally from drama to a comedic moment were too much of a hard turn, and they could have been placed differently. And then my other problem, quite frankly, was the Candlebite sequence. I don't believe story-wise that served any purpose to move the plot along.
No. Well, what's interesting about that to me is ordinarily a casino scene in Star Wars sounds amazing, and there were expanded universe or legends material that described Lando or somebody being in a space casino. And we see a little bit of that in Solo, and it's fun. Them gambling, playing Sabacc. The sequence in Last Jedi felt like something in a Harry Potter movie, or it just didn't fit at all with what. Well,
it doesn't push. I don't think it pushes the story along because ultimately, what they go to there, the reason they go there doesn't advance the story because they don't end up getting what they need in the least bit. It's a wasted piece, and I think that the way that the thread is introduced with Maz Kanata is again a wasted opportunity.
It seemed odd, yeah.
It played out, that particular intro played out like the intro if I was playing a video game, and
very much so. And I agree.
And your backstory, but when it comes to Luke's arc and Yoda, and what you would deem a slap in the face to them burning down the temple, you remember that in Empire Strikes Back, Yoda, when Luke sees his friends in trouble, Yoda is telling him, "You don't go." And Luke is saying, and sacrifice Han and Leia. He says, if you honor what they fight for, yes. Because if you go now, help them you could, but you will destroy all for which they have fought and suffered. And Luke has removed himself from the equation because he realizes that if he goes, he only escalates things. Snoke says, there's been a disturbance,
Sure.
The dark as well as the light. The light rises and the dark to meet it. And so Luke decides, I'm going to diffuse the situation and remove myself from it and let this thing play out. Now, ultimately, Yoda comes and tells him, you're an idiot. It says,
the Yoda portion I liked. The Yoda portion I did like. I loved the fact that he used the original, or at least the Empire puppet.
Yeah.
But
what he and Ryan in that point, Ryan pays off the story, because when Rey comes to Luke and says, we need you, he says, what do you expect me to do? Stand in front of the entire First Order and take it down with a laser sword? And what does he do at the end? He stands in front of the entire First Order with a laser sword. And he does probably the most Jedi thing that any Jedi has ever done. He wins a battle without drawing any blood. And in doing so, he becomes the legend that people want and need. And that is the point of the Broom Kid at the end.
Right.
Is that they needed the legend of Luke Skywalker to keep the Resistance alive. And he gave that to them.
Well, I think that you've argued your points very well today, Kevin. I sincerely appreciate you dropping in and schooling us as someone who is, involved even behind the scenes with, from everything from the Clone Wars to way back in the day creating troops. And I mean, that's pretty much credited with generating everyone's internet videos that they make now.
And I got to say, to anybody that's trepidatious, and I've said this in post about Solo, and just, sitting there with their arms folded saying, I'm not going to say it. I'm like, Solo is probably the most Star Wars film that's been put out since Return of the Jedi. And
it's funny you say that. It reminded me of Jedi. A lot of the setups, how they were interacting, for sure.
And when people ask, what did you think? I said, it was a fun film. Who doesn't want to go have a fun time at the movies? Sure. It's like, I liked Rogue One, and I liked Jedi. It's just that, my God, it's like I can only say Gower for so long. This was a fun, funny action film. Is it the greatest Star Wars film put to cinema, to digital or to film? No, but it doesn't have to be. Everything nowadays is like, well, but was it better than Empire? And I'm like, no, I mean, that's the yardstick,
Sure.
It's like,
it's not going to happen.
No
offense, but they're not going to be able to,
if we're going to put, is it better than the best movie ever made? I'm sorry, nothing has yet topped Godfather Part 2.
Right. Well,
that's my weird yardstick. And
when do we get to see Tag and Bink in the deleted scenes? I guess now in Solo.
John is hoping they'll be on the Blu-ray, and I understand. He was talking about what the scene was, and knowing that Solo's running time was 2:15. And the character Han actually, in one line, told the audience what happened in the scene that Tag and Bink were in. So it would have just been a retread of information that the audience already knew. And so to get rid of 5 minutes and replace it with one line. I'm pressed to say that if I were the director, I would have done the same thing.
Gotcha. Well, we'll look forward to seeing it on the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Kevin, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today on the pod. I'd love to have you back if you'd like to chat again at some point.
Sure. You've got my PM on Facebook.
So again, my thanks to Kevin Rubio for stopping in and saying hi to me today with some marvelous insights. It was great to have Kevin on. I think that was extraordinarily kind of him, and it was fun to be able to chat Star Wars with the man. I know that he is a huge fan, as am I, and it was great to touch base and chat about Solo and LAST Jedi and everything going on in the world of Disney Star Wars today. I look forward to having Kevin on again at some point to discuss what happens next. I mean, we've got Episode 9 coming up. We've got these television programs that are happening. Just a lot of stuff happening in the world of Star Wars, as we all know, which is why we're here at Falcon Dish doing this podcast. I would like to remind everyone on Kevin's behalf that everybody can pick up Tag and Bink, We're Here. It's available at all fine comic book stores. I know that there are a lot of fans of Tag and Bink out there, and as we discussed, there is hopefully a deleted scene that will be included on the Blu-ray and DVD copy of the Solo, A Star Wars Story home video release coming out, probably, I would assume, probably near the Christmas holiday of this year. So at any rate, thank you all again, as always, for tuning in to the pod. If you have any questions, comments, criticisms, concerns, chat me up on Twitter. Again, the address there is @FalconDish. And let me know what your thoughts and feelings are about Solo, about LAST Jedi, about Episode 9, about all of these things happening in the world of Star Wars. Let's discuss. I'd love to hear from you guys and get ideas for podcasts down the road. And so there you have it, my friends. My thanks again. And as always, as cheesy as it sounds, may the Force be with you.